So if you were to simplify to the audience wants to know, hey, Stephen, what are some of those 6,000 patents that we have, and what industries would they destroy, and how much would our lives improve? For example, one, we have access to being able to produce cars that can run on water, and it puts a $5 trillion oil industry out of business overnight.
Right.
We have the pharmaceutical side to be able to come up and solve cancer tonight. We just have, because if we do the amount of chemotherapy business is a such and such amount of $1 billion industry, we don't want to put that out of this. We have the ability to do it. I want to know, do you know what technologies and patents are in there?
I do.
Can you share some of them with the public that maybe would be revealing?
Well, I can do better than that. You go to our archive, and there's a whole file of, I believe, thousands of pages of those that were copied by a man I knew who's passed away named John Bedini. And there was a CIA officer who had approached me, but previously had approached him and took him. And it's called the Saki files, S-C-G-E-K-I, Saki. And he was a CIA officer who allowed Mr. Bedini to go into a...
Bedini or Benini?
Bedini, B-E-D-I-N-I.
Got it.
John Bedini, and he's passed away, but a couple years ago. But this CIA officer, Saki, he let him go into a facility where they had confiscated these sort of inventions over many decades. And they had the patents in file cabinets. And he told John Bedini, he said, he was trying to recruit him into the agency in a covert program dealing with technologies, because the guy was a genius with electromagnetic engineering, Bedini was. And he let him for 24 hours copy anything he wanted. And so he went and he did. But the CIA officer, Saki, eventually was told, no, I'm not going to join your operation. But Bedini had kept a copy of those files, which members of my team digitized.
So the CIA officer didn't know that he took those files?
He didn't know he kept a copy. He thought he got them all back. And now we've released them. They were in an encrypted CD, I believe, and the encryption's been removed, and people can go in there. Now that was the tip of the iceberg, because this was a huge facility. It's like the end of the movie where Steven Spielberg, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they're rolling the thing into this big warehouse top.
Where was this facility?
It was in the upper Midwest, is what I've been asked just to say, in a old schoolhouse facility that was cordoned off and looked like nothing important.
So you know where it's at, but just you're not able to say.
Yep.
Okay.
I do know where it is.
Got it. And would it be a place that the average person walks by every day and they have no clue what it is?
They'd have no idea.
And is there protection, like hardcore secret, protection around it that you can't see, or are there people outside of the building that you could tell that something's weird about this building?
There are sensors.
There are sensors. Got it.
Right.
And what are some of the things you guys found? Thousands of pages. What are some things your team and you and your team found where it's, why would they hide something like this from? Why would they keep this away from us?
Well, they had electromagnetic devices that were so-called free energy. They had technologies that would take water, as you mentioned, and do the hydrolysis past the Faraday constant, where it would be at certain voltages and frequency, you get a magnetically charged hydrogen and oxygen gas you can burn, get energy. The only pollution is water vapor. All of those sort of technologies. But then there were other things that were even stranger, where you can cause basically atomic changes in the electron shell so that you can move up and down the periodic table at certain frequencies, magnetic field frequencies, so that you could theoretically take tin and turn it into gold. Transmutation. It's like the alchemist, but it's high tech. And these are very old discoveries. And so one of the big problems is when you ask this question, why wouldn't we have it? The economic power is really about the money. It's about dollars. But when you start talking about trillions and dozens or hundreds of trillions of dollars, now you're talking about something that is an impact that's way beyond inventing a cell phone or even the internet. This is way past that, because our entire planet is running on an antiquated grid and energy paradigm from the late 1800s. And if you take nuclear power plants, the mid-40s. And what I remind people is, do you really think fundamental energy generation and propulsion technologies haven't gone forward since 1945? This is ridiculous. But those technologies, which prompted these national security patent acts and seizure laws, both had applications. They could be sold to Congress because there were legitimate state secrets. You didn't want to just let someone leak out, your design for a nuclear warhead, for example. But on the other hand, there are things that technologies that would greatly benefit humanity. And let me remind people, this would literally end all pollution on Earth, but would also end poverty on the planet within about 20 years. Why? Right now, you have 3 billion people on the planet. The Economist came out with an article, I think 2 years ago, about this, that don't even have energy to cook their food. So they're like cutting down any brush in the desert and the rainforest just to be able to have some charcoal to cook food. That's 3,000 million people. This isn't sustainable. This is not a way to have a planet, right? So these technologies would change that. And many, many people in these covert programs agree this should change. But you're stepping on some very big toes. I mean, you're talking the kind of macroeconomic power globally that is way past anything that the president deals with. And that's the problem. Because on the one hand, it's some people have told me who are in this system, it's like the cure is worse than the disease. That to release this, it'd be too disruptive. I said, yes, it should have been released 100 years ago. When it would have been transition, would have been easy. But now look at the mess we're in because of this secrecy, but also the illegal application of it in the last 60 years. Now, that is what Congress right now is trying to grapple with. But it's a big mistake for the public to think, because you're the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee or the co-chairman, like
you're a nobody,
like Mr. Rubio.
Yeah,
those folks are told either nothing or some version of a lie that they want to be told. This is what happened to Mr. Trump, by the way, in his first term, and also Mr. Pence, because a friend of Mr. Pence's family works with me, and we found out what happened. But the problem with all of this is what has happened to democracy and oversight and we the people. But also, when you talk about we have a free market economy and capitalism, do we? I mean, if the most important discoveries in sciences of the last 100 years have been ruthlessly confiscated and kept secret, no, we have a faint shadow. We have a managed economy. It's not quite as managed as, say, China's or the Soviet Union's or Venezuela and controlled, but it's still controlled and managed. It's a mistake to think it's free market. It isn't. The only way it could be free is that if the technologies that were not weaponized, and this is when you mentioned that, Mr. Trump's uncle said, no, these are fine. They're not going to hurt anything. Well, they wouldn't hurt. It's not like they're dangerous. It's just that it's going to hurt you if you own, a $3 trillion oil field off of Venezuela or whatever, and these big interests. So I think this is, and I'm not saying that everybody in the oil industry knows about this. They're not. They're just doing their jobs. But I'll tell you, there's a Fortune 50 companies chairperson trying to come forward.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.